I'd like to talk to you a bit about how surprising it still is to me that we have such an enormous challenge of what I call digital resilience. Back in 1997-8, when Brent and I started lastminute.com, the issue that we faced wasn't whether people believed in lastminute.com. No one did, that was easy. It was whether or not people would put their credit cards into the internet. And I remember being in a meeting with the only venture capitalist that had said yes to a meeting with us, because all of the others had said no, when he asked us a question, and he just could not believe that anybody would put their credit card number into a website that they could not trust. Well, that didn't prove to quite be the case, although quite a lot of the first people to put their credit card details into lastminute.com were my friends and family. The website grew, but more importantly, the market grew, the sector grew, and the rest, as they say, is history. But I don't think I or Brent or anyone at that time could possibly have imagined that 10 years later, 12 years later, another phase of the internet's development would emerge, the extraordinary and incredible reach of people's sharing on the internet using the tools that technology allowed. How many of you have recently slept with a stranger in your bed? Well, 100 million people have let a stranger sleep in their bed using Airbnb over the last 5 years. And that is not even the only example. People get into Uber cabs all the time. They use Lyft. They use people to get their TaskRabbits done. This is a phenomenon in the US. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's just emerging here. You can pay somebody to do the things that you find very difficult to do. And guess what the most highly paid task that people get other people to do is? Anybody know? Not ironing, Wendy, no. But you could get, I'm not going to do that, but somebody might do it for you. Assembling IKEA furniture. So this huge phenomenon has emerged, and it's different to what we imagined back in 97. 100 million people have let a stranger take the keys to their house, their flat, wherever they live, and sleep in their bed. That is quite something. That, to me, is the ultimate trust, and a very different level of trust to where we thought the internet might end up, and I think a very positive and a very good one. But I still believe that we have got everything to play for, that the internet is still at the absolute beginning of how we use it in our society. I would argue it's the organizing principle of our age, and yet we are not still really organized around it. And the particular thing that I personally get vexed by is the following. It's how little digital literacy there is at all levels of society. And more than that, the lack of diversity of thought in the technology sector. 3 areas of this for me. The first is with our leaders. Still not enough of the people who are making the major decisions in our country and others, in politics and even in business, really understand the changing shape of technology, because it's incredibly hard and it's very difficult, but it's also immensely important. And it's a matter of urgency to keep reinforcing that unless these leaders are able to understand the world in 2016, then we will all lose trust even further in how they operate and the decisions they make. But it's not just leaders. There are still 12.5 million adults in this country who are at the other end of the spectrum, who've never used the internet, who don't have basic digital skills. And it affects not only our economy to the tune of about 76 billion, but it also profoundly affects their lives. And I asked somebody in my team the other day to map digital exclusion with Brexit voters. Now, clearly, it's not a causation, but there is an interesting phenomenon that they pretty much layer on top of each other. And it's not just by poverty or by rural, it's by area you live in. You can be in a very rich area that doesn't have much internet access. You can be in a very rural area without much internet access. You can be a very poor area without much internet access or with no skills. It's a very interesting phenomenon. So we need to work hard to include more and more people. Not because the internet will solve all problems, but it's where the information that we're using to make our own decisions is coming from. It's where people are able to use the resources that they have to share more widely with other people. And it is the organizing principle of our age. And the third group, so we have leaders, we have other people who are in communities who don't use the internet. And the third area why inclusion to me is so, so important is because of some of the incredible absences from the tech sector. And I'm going to pick one, perhaps unsurprisingly, around gender. Wikipedia has already been mentioned this afternoon, and it's a phenomenal resource, and I have enormous respect for Jimmy Wales, who created it. But as I'm sure many of you know, 86% of Wikipedia's contributors are men. And there's nothing wrong with that, except it means that women are not surfaced on the website. There are substantially less comments and reviews and pieces of history about female writers, female scientists, any women in the public eye. And this is very, very important for reasons I'm sure I don't even need to mention. So I'm immensely optimistic about the future, but it has to be an inclusive future, and inclusive of as many diverse voices as possible. I never thought when we started lastminute.com that we would be at a place in 2016 where still so much of our country was not able to use the internet, had the opportunity to use the internet, and that we would still be wrestling with some of these questions around hierarchies, around exclusion and inclusion, gender, and people who are part of the wave and the sector and people who are not. This needs to shift very fast, or I don't think we can have trust in the internet at all. Thank you.